For the past couple of months, we've been introducing you slowly to all the concepts surrounding the gang issue. And today, to be honest with you, I'm very excited because we're going to go beyond those little information capsules and get into the meat of stuff. We always ask ourselves what's the most challenging part of the gang phenomenon. And one of the most challenging part is not getting in, it's getting out. And today we have the privilege of having a guy like Mr. Didoni interview a gang member who actually not only was able to get out, but successfully get out and help other children. I invite you to look at this capsule and see what you get of that.
We have the privilege of being with Andrew Backus. Andrew used to be a street gang member. He will talk to us on why he got involved with street gangs, what he had to do while he was with street gangs, maybe how difficult it was to get out of those gangs, and whatever else he's doing today. So, Andrew, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good. Very nice meeting you, by the way.
Nice meeting you too.
And Andrew, I understand you have a pretty good track record regarding street gangs. First of all, what made it that you wanted to be involved with gangs?
Well, I mean, for me, it started when I was a young kid. I grew up in a neighborhood called Jane and Finch, and I mean, back then, it was considered to be a neighborhood that struggled with poverty, a lot of social housing, that sort of thing. So there wasn't much to do in my neighborhood. I mean, you know, just kind of growing up there, you see different things going on in the community. You see people, you know, older guys, for me, making money, that sort of thing. So for me, it was trying to figure out how can I make some of that money myself too. So I mean, I was going to school at the time, and I had a pretty good family life too, but at the same, I was really attracted to money, you know, the sexiness of, you know, gang involvement.
Okay. Obviously, at the school you were going at that time, was there any kind of input from the school to involve our youth, like in music or art or sports, really?
When I was involved in that kind of stuff, it was something almost 20 years ago now, well, pretty much 20 years ago. So, I mean, the schools, they did lack resources, but the things that I find that are, you know, different nowadays is that back then, for me, the teachers seemed to be more teachers rather than facilitators. And what I mean by that, too, is that the teachers, it seemed that they had a more personal connection to the students, where, you know, I remember going to school sometimes, and if I was hungry, I had teachers notice and offer me an apple or something like that, where nowadays I find, because I also do a lot of work in the schools and that sort of thing, and I find that the teachers are, you know, overworked, you know, they're frustrated with different things, so at the beginning of the year, they go over the curriculum, and their goal is to deliver that curriculum. And I mean, I don't want to say that with all the teachers, because there are teachers that do great work, but I find, you know, there's been a shift, I guess, over the last 15 years or so.
Were there a lack of belonging at home, you know, or any kinds of problem at home that also kind of pushed you in getting involved in these gangs?
Well, for me, not necessarily, because I did come from, you know, my parents were around. I also have two older brothers that, you know, they were certainly involved in my life, but I was kind of a tough, hard-headed kid. Okay. You know, so yeah, I was really attracted to the flashy clothes, the money, the vehicles, you know, that sort of thing. And there wasn't much to do in my neighborhood. Now, you know, growing up at home, we didn't have much. My parents were, you know, blue collar people, very hard working, and, you know, they didn't have the greatest of jobs, you know. So with that said, for me, it was trying to go out and take care of myself, you know, and not having to go to my parents and rely on them for income and that sort of thing.
Once you got involved in gangs, how did you feel?
Well, I felt, you know, I felt pretty good about myself. Certainly back then, we didn't necessarily view it as the word gang. You know, over the years, there's been, you know, things have evolved. You know, we certainly hear different names like gangs, we hear cliques, we hear posses, we hear sets. All these things certainly evolved over the years. Gang is an umbrella type word that you could certainly, you know, kind of, you know, wrap everything up into one term. You know, back then, you know, we used to call ourselves a set, we used to call ourselves a clique, and it was kind of more of a brotherhood. where we had a group of friends that we enjoyed being around with and that sort of thing. And then one day it just led to us becoming this Jane Finch street crew. You know what I mean?
So, was there anything you were forced to do at that time?
Oh, no, no.
So in those days, it was not quite like that.
It was a little bit different, and I mean, like in terms of the crew that we used to, kind of represent, myself and some others, we were some of the original guys there, So as people started, joining us and that sort of thing, we were viewed as some of the original guys, So I certainly wasn't viewed to be one of those bottom of the totem pole guys.
What made that one day Andrew decided to get out of the gang?
Well, I've did too much time in custody. I was getting in a lot of trouble with the police. I was getting shot at before. Just different things. I didn't finish high school, none of that stuff. And then later on in life, it was having my son, with my girlfriend at the time, who's my wife. And I mean, I had my son. He was just a little baby. And then I realized that I wanted to be around for my kids, and that sort of thing. So I said, you know what, it's time for me to do something else. I had an opportunity to work with this organization called Youth Clinical Services. It's a long story in terms of how I got there, but basically what happened to me is the most effective gang exit strategy. And that's just aging out, getting a little bit older, realizing certain things, maturing a bit, and, understanding that you can't do this forever.
So basically you didn't have any kind of complication getting out again.
No.
You had the kind of luck which other kids may not have today.
Yeah.
Now, I understand you're doing a lot of good today for the community, especially young kids. Could you explain to me exactly what you're doing?
Well, certainly over the years, I've been kind of working with kids now for about 15 years. And my thing was when I first got into the field, I wanted to work with those kids who I kind of viewed as myself. Those hard to reach type kids, those kids who weren't engaged in the community. So I've always worked with that target group of kids, whether they be criminally involved, gang involved, or just hard to serve or hard to reach kids. So I've been doing that for 15 years on a bunch of different levels. I started off doing community outreach, then it went to employment counseling, program managing, all sorts of different jobs I held, over the years. But I mean, I've always worked with those kids who I kind of viewed to, be myself back then. So now, for a lot of years, what I've done in the past was, I worked at a gang exiting program called Breaking the Cycle, where our job, what we used to do then was to get kids out of the gang, and then also to, offer them things like employment training, trying to replace some of the things that they've really held on to while being in their gang or in their situation. So some of that is income and, camaraderie and that sort of thing. So we try to replace that by showing them a more pro-social way of living.
Do you believe a lot of the kids are getting involved in gangs, so they are kids that are lacking something at home, maybe lack of love, lack of implication from their parents?
Yeah, well, Ricardo, I'll be honest with you. A lot of this stuff, it's really complex because there's many contributing factors to this. I believe when it comes to children, everything starts at home type thing. A lot of it, we struggle trying to find solutions to gang involvement, bullying, different things like that, substance abuse. For me, a lot of that can be dealt with if there is, really good parenting happening at home. And I certainly understand that many of these kids, they come from single parent families, different things like that. But at the same time, I encourage parents to, share one meal, at least one meal with their children, a day, if possible, whether that be breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Sit down with them at the dinner table, turn off all TVs, nowadays all iPhones and iPods and different devices like that. And just talk to your kids, get to know your kids, and don't just maintain, really take that extra time with your kids. If you notice, one thing I've always noticed is that when kids are real young, when they're in elementary school, let's say, the parents are usually at every single parent-teacher interview. As that child moves on to, say, a middle school, the parents maybe might go to every other one. every other parent interview. As they get into high school, it's whenever they have a chance, if lucky. So, I mean, we need to, I'm a parent myself too, is certainly find that level of involvement in their child's life that once existed during those critical years of elementary school and that sort of thing. A lot of it has to do certainly with parenting. A lot of it has to do with, community engagement, involvement, trying to mobilize support networks within, your family, within the community. And the more people you have that are working with a young person who may be struggling with this, the better chance that they have at success.
So maybe if a kid belonged to a good gang, like a soccer club, or that would help a lot.
Oh, certainly. I mean, another one of the big pieces, too, is economics. It's poverty. For example, a lot of this stuff, a lot of gang crime, it strongly exists within social housing communities. There's certainly some numbers, based on, housing, whether it be in Toronto and other communities, that show that a lot of crime does occur within these communities. These communities a lot of times are infested with youth gangs, youth crews, whatever you want to call it, So, that certainly is a big factor. How can we work with these social housing communities, or how can they also invest in young people to get them involved, whether that be through job opportunities, maybe to implement programming within the communities. That's certainly another piece there too.
What would you say that Andrew Backus has that when you approach one of those kids, you'll help them out?
And tell you the truth, what it all comes down to is just being genuine. I talk to these guys like I talk to my own kids. You know what I mean? I am kind of that person. I am what you get type thing. And I just, I talk to kids from the heart. I certainly tell them I understand where they're coming from, having come from the same type of place. And I just tell them exactly what it is. Not all kids are ready to leave a life of crime, a life of gang involvement, that sort of thing. And I tell them, you know what? That's okay, because that's your choice, I certainly don't believe I have the ability to change people, nor do I want to change people, because what I see with these kids is that, when they were little babies, they came into this world innocent, full of life, precious, all sorts of things like that. Well, I see them for those innocent kids that they once were. And as they go through life, different things happen to them which causes them to view the world in whatever way they do. So when I work with those kids, I try to peel back those layers and expose that innocent baby that once was. So I just speak to them from the heart and tell them, you know what, there's more to life than gang involvement, than criminal involvement, what have you. Just give yourself a chance. So at the end of the day, you gave it a shot. If it doesn't work out, at least you could go to bed at night not thinking, what if? And that's all I tell them. And I mean, at the same time, I think they are receptive to this because they kind of understand that I came from the same place as they're coming from. So, we could only do this one kid at a time.
I understand you're working with the government, the Ontario government, on certain projects to help these kind of kids. Could you explain a little bit more in details what you're doing exactly with them?
Well, at Astwood Corporation, I work with a fellow by the name of Michael Chettelberg, who is the president of our company. And basically what we're doing right now with the Ministry of Children and Youth Services is together we've developed a gang strategy that's provincial-wide. So part of this strategy is to implement an assessment tool that we're currently working on, where we can figure out what it is exactly that we're working with. Is this young person gang involved? Is he not? What are some of the challenges that he faces? And that sort of thing. So that's one piece to this gang strategy. Another one is we created a little program. It's called Road to Redemption, where it's made up of about, right now about 10 different sessions where we talk to kids about, skills and, whether it be we talk to them about employment, anger management, just different things like that, where we can plant the seed so when they are released, maybe, they can try to figure out, seek support in different things, or just to understand that, there are things out there that they can access. So that's another part of this. Another part of it, we train a lot of the staff in terms of how to develop this, how to deliver this program, how to administer the assessment tools, and a lot of it really has to do with kind of community engagement. So it was good to see that the ministry has decided to partner up with us to do this work.
Do you think the school should be really involved to better support kids that are having problems at home?
Oh, for sure, definitely. The schools, they have the ability to do so much, and I certainly understand that they are strapped because of budgets and that sort of thing. But I mean, at the end of the day, once a kid goes into school, the truth of the matter is that they spend about 8 hours of their day at school. So, I mean, once the school has the ability to identify that there are kids who are struggling or individual kids that face challenges, at that point, I'd certainly encourage them to take a wraparound approach where they can engage the parents, also, people from the school and the community to work specifically with that individual so it doesn't snowball into anything more serious, to kind of get it as it's first happening.
Do you believe also we should maybe give better equipped parents so that they can better interact with their children?
Oh, yeah. A lot of it has to do, we certainly need to educate parents on this. You guys are certainly doing good work in terms of getting the message out there where parents can access that information. And I mean, the more information that parents have, the better, chance that they have in terms of understanding some of the issues that their kids face. Some of the things that parents can certainly look out for is just to maybe go through their notebooks, their school books, and see if there's any doodling in there that's out of the ordinary, if there's any graffiti type stuff in their notebooks. Another thing is just to notice the friends that they're hanging out with. What type of activities are they doing? Do they know what their kids are doing when they go outside and, play with friends or what have you? Those are some of the things. Know the friends that they're dealing with, that they hang out with. Invite them over to your house. Sit down, have dinner with them, and just get to know them a bit. So it's real important to know, who your children are with when you're not around or what have you. So those are certainly some things that parents can do.
Andrew, I understand you get the kids to come to your own house here.
Yep.
And, you're doing some kind of musics with them and all that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, part of this stuff, because given that I've been doing this work now for about 15 years, I certainly developed positive working relationships with young people over the years. And, I mean, gang exit is something that doesn't happen overnight. Or for a young person to realize their potential in a positive way doesn't happen overnight. So I developed relationships with young guys from my neighborhood, or guys that I've been working with over the years now, who are certainly into music. I mean, I was turned on to music from one of the young men who I've done work with over the years. So it's just a hobby that I do on the side, and I certainly understand that a lot of these young guys can't access music studios and that sort of thing. So once I get to know them, and I know that these guys are solid guys, and these are guys who I worked with now for years. It could even be 7, 8, and it's not even work with at this point. These are guys who, certainly I do my best to mentor them and that sort of thing, and they come down here and we work on music. They, record, and just all in fun,
If you had anything to add, Andrew, what would it be?
I mean, for me to kind of, a message I would put out there for kids is just, stay away from this stuff. There's nothing fun, exciting, or nothing like that about gang involvement, criminal involvement. When you get a criminal record, I mean, you can't even get a job at UPS. People view you a different kind of way. It's harder to be successful at school. You may gain labels on yourself. Certainly the more deeply involved you get into in terms of gangs, you put yourself in danger, put your family in danger. It's not about this garbage that we see on TV. Bullets hurt. You know, we watch movies and we see guys like Wesley Snipes getting shot and still jumping over buildings and whatever the case may be. I've personally seen people get shot and lose control of all their bodily functions right in front of me. So there's nothing cool about getting shot. There's nothing cool about going to jail. None of that stuff. I would say for young people, education is key. You know, stick to school. If you are facing challenges in school, talk to your parents. Talk to an adult with whom you trust, whether that be your parents, a teacher, somebody in your community. Maybe if you go to church, somebody in your church. Talk to somebody who you trust. And then from there, just listen to what they have to say. Because if you do have positive figures in your life, most of the time they just want to see you succeed. So they'll certainly offer you whatever good advice that they can.
Well, Andrew, I congratulate you for all the good work you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
Keep it up, and we need more people like you.
Oh, thank you.
It's a pleasure to know you.
Thank you, Ricardo. Thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that capsule, because I'll tell you something. I was there, and it was exciting to actually see and hear how a real gang member was able to deal with the situation. And these are things that we need to do more and more, is actually connect with those who are really involved from the base up. And to be honest with you, there were certain concepts that stayed with me during the interview. One of them was the age-out exit strategy. We have a lot of preconceived ideas that we could actually put up a program and a structure that would allow someone to just get out of a gang. Well, it's more complicated than that, as you can see through the interview. I hope this capsule was very informative to you, because it was to me. Have a great day.